I
Well,
think we can make it happen.
all right. All right. Welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on Jerry. How's it going, man?
I'm well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good,
So,
good.
yeah, I got you from Pod Match, like a lot of
Yep.
people, and I pretty much just saw what you do and what you're interested in, and figured I'd have you on. So, I guess if you could just kind of go ahead, get straight into like who you are, what you do, and how you got started.
So for over 15 years, I've been in the health and fitness industry. I started that, I've been in the gym since I was 13 years old for sports. We had the 60-minute club back in middle school and um, went, played sports all the way through college. So I was in the weight room all the way through college, just enjoyed it, loved it. Once I got out of college, my brother-in-law had bought a gym. So he asked me to start working there. I'm like, cool, yeah, I'll start working. So started working the front desk, started selling a little bit. And of course, I'm training there all the time too. So the members get to see me. And eventually they started asking me, hey, can you start training me? Or hey, can you start training my son? I actually started training athletes before I started training general population. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll figure it out. Like, yeah, let's do this. So slowly started accumulating clients, and one thing led to another. I probably trained there for maybe 3 or 4 years before I actually stepped out and did something on my own. I was 29. It was, 10 years ago. So 2013 when I stepped out and opened a fitness facility for the first time. It was a 1,200 square foot space. So decent size. We had a couple racks, little space for some turf and some sled work. And most of my clients ended up being general population. A lot of them were between the age of 45 and 60. So I train them like athletes, which I believe that all of us still have our inner athlete built in us. We just got to be able to like unleash it and find it. At any rate, was there in that facility for about 3 or 4 years, moved to another space. It was 5,500 square feet and was there for about 5 years until I closed that last year. And that ended up me transferring everything online. So I went from being the only fitness facility basically in the town that we were in to transferring myself online where there are literally millions of coaches trying to do the thing that I'm trying to do. So if you will, I don't want to say top of the totem pole to bottom of the totem pole, but that's essentially what I did. So yeah, it's been an interesting transition, and now I'm developing more of a holistic approach on the person instead of just fitness itself, because most people fail in fitness because they miss the mindset part of it. And so that's why it's encompassing the whole thing, top to bottom, instead of just the exercise or nutrition part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that last thing you said is 100% true for even like the people who come in around New Year's, right? They have their New Year's resolution. Most of them fail to continue to come back is because they lack that mindset. They're doing it for a short-term purpose. And I actually did a podcast with a guy and we were talking about how a lot of people work out with like an end goal in mind. It's like
Mhm.
there is no end goal.
There
Like
is no end.
yeah,
Mhm.
is the end goal.
Right. The
Like,
the
should
end
be
is when you get checked off the list, is the way that I like to put it. Like that's the end, but most people don't have that comprehension. The assumption, the underlying assumption when you start wanting to lose weight, like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to get a six pack, I want to get ready for the beach, which is all great. That's fine. And that's part of like building self-esteem and self-confidence. And that's great. However, the underlying assumption in starting that is that you want to keep it. And if that's the case, then the next understanding is that it is ongoing. It is something that you continue to do, but nobody takes the next step. They just take that first step. I want to lose 20 pounds. But the problem is when you do that, then like you said, you just stop. And when you stop, then what happens? Everything comes right back. All your weight comes back on. You lose all your progress. And what you don't see happening is what's happening up here whenever that happens. When you stop and you lose all your progress and you go back to the person you were before, what's happening in your mind is you're basically starting to tell yourself that you don't follow through with the things that you start, and that you're not the type of person that can be healthy and fit. You're not the type of person that can keep weight off. You're not the type of person that can keep a six pack or stay in shape. And that's essentially what you're telling yourself subconsciously. Again, it's an unconscious process, but it's worth understanding that that happens, because the more often you do that, and if you ask most people who start a New Year's resolution, how many times have they started a New Year's resolution? There's a reason that that happens. So eventually you have to stop starting New Year's resolutions and just do it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like asking a coach, like, "How many times did you decide to become a coach?" It's like, "Well,
Right.
I made the decision
No
once,
doubt.
I just kept it going."
Right. No doubt. Exactly. And it would be the same thing for like an entrepreneur or anybody. I mean, if you just take the idea of a career, like most people start a career and then they usually just keep going unless they decide to take a drastic shift and do something different, which is fine. But if you think about it in the context of your health, you can start by wanting to build muscle, and then you do that for 5 years, and then you're like, oh, I'd like to do something different. Now I want to start to focus on building strength. Okay, you do that for a couple of years and you're like, oh, well, now I want to do something different. Now I want to start trying to be more functional and be more athletic. So then you start to train different. It's the same idea, but again, we just don't look at it as beneficial because it doesn't give us monetary reward that allows us to buy things, or doesn't feed the societal norms, if you will, which the societal norms are buying things, showing that you have things, a whole nother conversation, which we can get into. But um, yeah, so that mindset is important to understand. Long term, long term is where we are.
So something I want to kind of get into is something that you kind of touched on just now, and that was you started talking about people deviating what they're doing in their exercises, and you said building muscle, then you said building strength, and I think most people, especially if you're new to working out, you don't know the difference between those two. Like you think
Yep.
I have muscle, then I have strength, or I have
Mhm.
strength, then I have muscle. Could you kind of elaborate on the different ways that people can work out to have like different builds? You know, people talk about like the what's it called, like mesomorph or something like.
Mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorph, and there's one more that I'll get eventually. At any rate, so there's a saying that came from a guy named Andy Galpin.
Oh, I know.
He was very smart dude, very brilliant guy. I think I got this when he was on the Huberman Lab a while back. And he said, there's no bad exercise, there's only bad adaptation,
Mm.
which basically means you have to understand what you're training for. You have to understand what you're trying to adapt for. And you also have to understand who you are. So everyone starts at a different spot and everyone's trying to go to a different place. They're kind of categorized, if you will, but nonetheless, we're trying to go to different places. So to understand the difference between building strength and having muscle, it starts with understanding that you can be big, and being bigger helps with strength, but you can also be smaller than a bigger guy and be stronger than him, because basically what you're doing whenever you're training with a certain level of volume is you're adapting the muscle in such a way that you allow the muscle to change, not by getting bigger, but by literally compressing and getting stronger. I'm not like the scientific type, so I can't break it down scientifically. But when you train in a lower rep range, meaning like a 3 to 5 rep range, you can get stronger without getting much bigger. But when you train in like an 8 to 12 rep range, you can get stronger, but you're mostly going to get bigger. Because of the volume difference, your emphasis is on size over strength. If you take, for instance, a bodybuilder and a power lifter, and they're both 200 pounds, and they're both 12% body fat or 15% body fat, the power lifter is going to be substantially stronger than that bodybuilder, because that power lifter has the muscle development to be able to move the weight. And the bodybuilder doesn't have the muscle development to be able to do that, even though he has a lot of muscle on him. So, and then there's, you have speed, you have functional strength that you can build. So there's different categories of abilities that you can build for, but you have to understand what adaptation do you want? What ability do you want to build into? And then you want to go after it. So if you want to lose weight and you start doing yoga, it's probably not going to be the most effective thing because there's no high intensity training in there. You're not building any muscle, and muscle is the thing that burns calories. So you just have to understand what you want to do and then pick a modality of exercise that actually fits that gap.
Yeah, there's people like what's his name? Frank Madrano. Do you know who that
Mhm.
is?
Yep.
Like that dude, I think he's vegan and he's about all of 1% body fat.
Yeah.
He
Lean, lean as can be.
super strong though. Like
Hmm.
his ability to control his body. Like
Hmm.
he can do things that most people aren't able to do who are twice his size. And it's
Hmm.
because he's gotten so used to moving his body in a certain way that you're like, what is he doing? Like that doesn't make any sense. But he's just got
100%.
so much strength just packed into his muscle that he's able to control it. And I think like people like him who do a lot of calisthenics, stuff like that, as you said, like if you do yoga, you're not going to get very big muscles, but you might get strong at like, those poses or whatever like
Hmm.
that. You might
Yeah.
be able to
You'll build
hold
that
them.
calisthenic strength.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think it's important for people. That's why I asked for you to explain, because I think it's important for people to understand whatever route you choose to do, whether you want to do like powerlifting stuff, bodybuilding, CrossFit, whatever you decide to do, that's what you're going to be good at. Like
Hmm.
it might not translate to
100%.
the other thing.
Hmm.
Whatever you constantly do is probably what you're going to be good at.
100%. And it's worth reiterating, like if you walk into the gym, if you walk into the weight room, maybe is a better way to say it, at the gym, and you look how people are training, most people train like quote unquote bodybuilders, if you will. They do split training, meaning they train one body part a day, chest one day, back one day, shoulders one day, legs one day, and so on. That's what a lot of people in the gym do. And the reason they do that is because that's what people in the gym do. So basically what you're doing is which is partly smart, but also at the same time you have to understand what you're trying to do is they walk into the gym and they see what everyone else is doing and then they just kind of follow along with everyone else is doing. Well, looks like everyone's doing arms, so I guess I got to do arms one day, back one day, shoulders one day, legs one day, and so on. But if you have a different adaptation that you're going for, which again, whenever we had the fitness studio, our demographic was people between the age of 45 and 60. Most of their goals were not to be a bodybuilder, were not to be power lifters. It was to be functionally able,
Hmm.
meaning to live life at their best and to be their strongest throughout the day. Meaning, if they had to bend over and pick something off the ground, or they had to reach up and grab something off of a shelf, or they had to go and mow the yard, or they had to do some cutting and they had to cut wood. If they had to do those things, they wanted to be their strongest doing those things. Most of them had either kids or grandkids that were young to be able to get down on the ground and then get back up and play around with the grandkids. That's a big deal. So if you want to be able to do that, the most effective way is probably not to do shoulders one day and then back one day and then legs and so on and so forth. It's to build a body. You want to train the whole body because you use the whole body always, all the time. So then the best thing to do is do a full body workout most of the time when you go to the gym. And that's just an example of knowing what you're trying to do and then using the weight room in such a way that you actually build the body that you're trying to build over time.
So what have you found to be like your maybe your favorite or best fit for you specifically? What kind of workouts have you found that works for you?
So that's a great question. It's perfect timing actually too, because next week I'll actually start changing my splits. Going back to the point is to be able to do things for until you're checked off the list. So you want to be able to do this for the rest of your life. And one thing that kills most people is boredom. They just get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. And yet, at the same time, if you're training for life, you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. You should have some foundational things, and then there's some things you can do. But then also, you want to change things on a set schedule. And typically, that's about 12 to 15 weeks or so that you kind of want to change things up. So I'm kind of on that phase where I'm going into the next phase of my training for the year, if you will. And what I'll start next week is actually just an upper and lower body split. So on Monday, I'll do lower body. On Tuesday, I'll do upper body. And then Thursday, I'll go to lower body again. And Friday, I'll do upper body again. What I've done all the way leading up to now is full body every day. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Full body. But the way that I split it up, I don't think in muscles, I think in movements. So the upper body has two movements, the lower body has two movements. Now, granted, there's lots of angles within the movements, but generally speaking, in the upper body, you can either push or you can pull. And in the lower body, it's the same thing. You can either push, meaning squat, or you can pull, meaning hinge, which is typically for the hamstrings. Squats typically for the quads. Pushing upper body is typically for the chest and shoulders. Pulling for the upper body is typically for the back, traps, and upper shoulders, upper rear shoulders. Sorry. So to go back to the split that I was talking about, if you were going to do 4 days a week, which is what I've done up until now, on Monday, I would do it was full body every day, meaning I was doing upper body and lower body, but I would train push upper body and pull lower body on Monday. And then Tuesday, I would train pull upper body and push lower body. So when I say full body, I mean like I'm training upper body and lower body every day. I'm just training the opposite sides of the body, front and back, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So now, starting next week, to adapt to my body differently, I'll go to full lower body and then full upper body and do that twice a week.
How do you think that doing that specifically will progress over time? Like, how do you think that will help you as a fit person with doing the functional movement as we talked about, just being able to move your body, the impact of it.
Yeah, most definitely. So, one of the main reasons that I'm changing my training next week or changing my training now is because I know that going into the summer, I'll want to get outside and start running more. I want to get outside and start being athletic more. When I say running, running for me is not like going out and pounding the pavement. When I say running, I mean like go out and sprint, go out and do agility work, go out and jump around on boxes and jump over hurdles and do that kind of thing. I mean, like be an athlete kind of running. So the change is more a function of building my body to be able to do that, which is that functional training that we're talking about, which begs the question, what is functional training? So it's kind of a hard question, but here's the simplest way to answer it. Functional training is basically training to adapt to the thing that you're trying to do. And most people are trying to do life. So what is functional to life? And most of what is functional to life is typically single arm or single leg, meaning unilateral kind of stuff. So instead of just doing like two-legged squats or bench press or machine work, you're doing things that challenge your body at different angles, which typically requires you being on one leg or using one arm. So like A Bulgarian split squat, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that, is a single leg or unilateral lower body exercise. A single arm dumbbell row is a unilateral upper body pulling exercise. And that challenges the body differently than, say, if I had two dumbbells in my hand and I was rowing, because you have to stabilize yourself in your core from turning side to side whenever you're rowing the weight up and down. Or if you're doing a Bulgarian split squat, which for those people who don't know, it's basically having one of your legs back on a bench and then the other leg is out in front and you're squatting with just the one leg. If you're doing that, again, you have to stabilize yourself from side to side, from teetering side to side. So it requires a different level of stability and a different level of adaptation. So that's functional training, if you will, at its core is training your body to be able to do things that you're going to do throughout life, like bending over and picking things up and grabbing things. And if you want to be able to go out and run and move and jump, to being able to do things like that. So that's where my training is taking me over the next 3 months, is to be able to function better when I go out on the track or go out on the field and go jump around and run around.
I do want to kind of go back to when you were talking about working with other people. So you said you're working with kids and athletes. That's my thing. Like when I used to personal train, I don't anymore, but when I would work with people, I had a kid, he was like 14, 15, I can't remember. And he was one of those kids that just looked like he was too big for his age, you know? He just kind of like
Mm,
looked
yep.
those awkward looking offensive
Awkward.
linemen
Yep.
kids. Well, he was that, and his mom was like, "Hey, like he's bigger and all this stuff and not really using his body well, and kind of kids kind of make fun of him and stuff
Mm,
like that." She was like, "Can you help him out or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So I started working with him, and I could drastically see the difference in his strength and how he was able to move his body and stuff. And his mom, like one day, she pulled me aside and she was like, "His confidence is so much higher. He's just so much stronger and stuff like that." And I was like, "That's what I love. Like
mm.
just the simple, working with him and stuff like that completely changed his life." But I'm interested in your stories of, things how you've helped people, and also feel free to get into the woods of like just the smallest things of what you had to do with different people and depending on, the kind of athlete and all that kind of stuff.
So you hit on a very important point, and that is that, and when we actually hit on this in the beginning as well, so we're hitting on it again, which means that's how important it is that we've already talked about this twice. Is that what keeps people from moving forward is, which is the mind, is also what develops if you stay in it long enough. Part of it is not understanding that it takes a long time to develop. That's one of the mindset shift that it takes. The other thing is most people don't have the confidence to keep going and to keep following through. Most people don't have the confidence in themselves that they can actually achieve the thing that they're trying to achieve, because either they've tried it so many times and failed, or society has just told them that it's not important, so why should you try? So the weight room is one of the best places to build confidence. One of the best places to build confidence, because it is, from an effort output standpoint, meaning you're putting effort into something and then you're getting feedback back. The weight room is, in my opinion, the best place to do that, because very quickly you'll actually see your body start to change. And very quickly, especially if you're a beginner, your strength will go up very quick, especially if you're a beginner. Now, if you're seasoned, it's not the same. But if you're a beginner, your strength's just going to go like this. Like you'll see it progress very quickly. And so it's worth hanging on to that confidence, and it's worth recognizing those big changes and shifts as you're just getting started, because like I said, most people are missing that confidence. It's also the small things that matter too. And the question that you're asking, I think, is an important one, because most people get started because of trying to lose weight or trying to get chiseled shoulders, whatever, the things that we've talked about. which again is good. It builds your self-confidence, it builds your self-esteem. And yet, whenever people talk to me about how it affects their lives, it's never like, I got this six pack now and I'm excited about it. Here's an example of a small thing that has an impact on somebody. One of the members that we had at the gym, and he probably trained with us for 3 years or so. He was always a big guy, even up until the end when we closed the gym down. 280 pounds or so, maybe 5'10". Always kind of a big guy. He's about 60, 62 years old, but very immobile and kind of a hunched over shoulders and hunched over neck, and just kind of like slowly moved around. And when he started, he's like, yeah, I just want to be able to kind of move better and feel better. He's like, I want to lose some weight and I want to do that, but I just kind of want to be able to move better and feel better. And about 6 months into his training, he came up to me and said, for the first time, what did he say? For the first time, I was able to take my leg. I sat down and I took my leg and I put it up on my knee without having to grab my foot and pull it up to my knee. Does that make sense? He was
Yeah.
putting his shoes on and he was able to just pick it up and put it up on his knee without having to grab his foot and pull it up to his knee. Now, most people look at that and they go, why is that a big deal? Like, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s, you kind of go, well, why is that a big deal? Well, he probably hasn't been able to do that for 20 or 30 years, I would imagine. So just the ability to sit down and independently pick his foot up and put his foot up on his knee so he could put his shoe on was something he recognized. Another one was one of our, she actually ended up being a coach for us, but one of the girls that ended up being one of our coaches, she lost 100 pounds, but it was actually a strength thing that she also noticed. She said for most of her adult life, she hasn't been able to open a glass can or a glass bottle with her left hand. And she said one day she was able to do it. And she said she sat there and smiled after she did it. She sat there and smiled and laughed after she did it. So it's like, man, you got to appreciate those small things. Like those small things matter a lot. The small things matter big time. So you have to be open to not just like, oh, I got to lose 20 pounds. You got to be open to everything that's going to happen whenever you're going through the change, because there's going to be so many other opportunities to win. And if you only focus on the one thing, like you said in the beginning, if all you're focused on the outcome, the one thing, once you hit the outcome, you're going to quit. But if you recognize that there's so many wins that you're going to have along the way, then the self-confidence and the self-esteem and your belief in yourself that will grow will just be phenomenal. But those are two things that I think of off the top of my head that were just like they stuck with me, and that's how much like those things matter. Those small things matter.
Yeah, I have a friend, she had posted online one day. It was either most people or everybody will never experience their full potential with their body. And I was like, dang.
Right?
Like it's a pretty crazy thought because like,
Yeah.
the human body will it will last longer than the brain. Like the brain
Mm,
give up very quickly because
mm,
you could be doing like reps of 12 and on rep 10 your brain would be like, yeah, that's good enough.
yeah.
But if you allow it to be the master and let your body be the slave, then yeah, then 10 is good enough. But if you can will yourself to those 12 reps, then you'll do it. The body will follow. And I've been using gymnastic bodies. It's Coach Somner. He always says in the one of the stretches, he says everybody's lazy. Like, or he says like the body is lazy. It will only do what you tell it to do. And I'm like,
Mm,
dang,
that's good.
that's a
That's
brutal
real
truth.
good. Yeah. There's so much truth to that. It's funny, like being a fitness guy, people look at, speaking of being lazy, which is where this is kind of going, people look at me, and I don't know if you have the same thought or feeling, but a lot of fitness people that I talk to, it's like they look at me and people are like, oh, it's easy for you because like you're excited to go work out all the time, right? You're excited to go do it. You love to go. Like, dude, I literally had to talk myself. Monday and Tuesday of this week were some of the worst workouts I've had in a long time because I had to go, damn, I got to get up and I got to go work out. Well, I got to go work out because I'm the type of person that shows up on Monday and Tuesday and works out. And like we're hitting on these points about changing your mindset about things. It's not it's not that like I'm excited to go do it all the time. I would actually argue that 6.5 to 7 times out of 10, I'm I'm going to do it. And then once I get there and kind of get going, then I get into it.
Mm,
But it's not like, oh, I'm excited, let's go do this every time, or even more often than not. More often than not, I'm going because that's what I'm doing, because that's the kind of person that I am, and that's what I do on Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. And then once I get there, it might take 5, 10, maybe 20 minutes. And then I'm like, I'm in it. But it's not like some people have it and some people don't. The problem is we have social media, and on social media, people only show they're excited that they're doing to do things. I love working out. This is great. This is awesome. But I promise you, when that person's not on camera, that's not what they're thinking and that's not what they're doing. So you have to be able to pull yourself away from like what you think everyone else feels and does, and recognize that the magic is just in showing up and doing it because you tell yourself you're going to do it.
yeah, I like to think of
That's
fitness
it.
as like a kind of like a business, right? So, I mean,
Mm,
it is a business, but like your personal fitness is like a business. And once you've decided that you enjoy that business and you are into that business, then it's not easy, but you get it. Like you get why you want this business to be successful. You get
mm,
why you want to invest in that business.
mm,
But like, say for instance, I don't know everything about you, Jerry, but like if I was like, hey man, I want to start this racquetball company. Like I've got everything together. I just need you to invest with me and let's hit the ground running. You're going to be my CFO. I'm going to be the CEO. We're good. We're good to go. Let's start. You might be like, I don't care about racquetball.
mm.
Then you're probably not going to be excited to
Right.
to to do it. Like you might think if I could show you numbers and be like, oh man, this is very lucrative, and you'd be like, man, this dude is making some money. I might make some money.
Mm,
You might be excited about the money, and same
mm,
thing for fitness. You might be excited about the muscle and stuff and what you might build. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't really see the vision that this person that this person
yeah.
has. So that's how I feel about us as people who are into fitness. Like we get it, like we get the purpose of it and all that kind of stuff. So it's not easy for us
Mm,
every single day, but we still get the point of it. So we just go do. We're like,
mm,
hey, I get it. So I'm gonna go do it because I see the end result and what it's going to do for me.
mm. Uh, there's so much truth. That's a great analogy, by the way. I like that a lot. There's just so much truth to that. If only like you said easy. And the problem is like this kind of thing is not it's not easy, but it's also very simple. And that's the other thing that people get twisted on is
Mm,
that they also want to make it complex. And I don't know if it's they want to make it complex because they just don't want to do it anyway, so they just try and make it complex for the sake of doing it. But I think it's mostly because they want there to be a secret thing, and when they try a secret thing, they try a sexy thing, a pill or a new workout program or a new diet or whatever, and it ends up being just like the last thing. Like you just end up layering on top the belief that you can't follow through. There's no secret, there's no sexiness, there's no complexity. It's very simple. And here's how simple it is. You could walk up to, and you understand this, Jackson. You could walk up to almost anybody on the street and say, how do you lose weight? And 9 out of 10 will tell you how to do it. They will tell you how to do it. You can walk up to anybody on the street and say, how do you get in shape? And 9 out of 10 will tell you how to do it. I almost 10. I would be willing to bet 10 out of 10 will give you some reasonable answer, some reasonable answer. So people know what to do, but it's like they want some sort of secret. They want some sort of like sexy thing. Like, give me that complex thing. It has to be something more complex, doesn't it? So when you tell them, like, no, it's a matter of literally just showing up and doing it. And like, you just got to eat the same thing over and over again. And you just got to work out over and over again and change it every once in a while. And that's fine. And have a cheat meal every once in a while. And that's okay. But immediately get back on it and do the same thing over and over again. And that's literally the magic. That's the magic. Yep. That's literally the magic. Like, that's where it is. So it's like, because it's not a sexy thing and because it doesn't have some fancy marketing wrapped around it, people have a hard time grasping the simplicity of it.
Yeah, I'll add to that with another story. I was at the gym one time, and some guy was like, "Man, you're really good at like pull-ups." And he was like, how do you get good with pull-ups and stuff?" And I was like, "You do pull-ups?" I don't know what else to tell you. Like, if you want to get good at something, just keep
Yeah.
doing it. Like, you think Peyton Manning got good by running routes? Like, no, he threw balls. Like, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
he got good at throwing the football. So it's that repetitive action of just doing that over and over again. And I think, most people aren't athletes, like actual, like super athletes. Like,
Right.
what is it? Probably like the same percentage of people who are in the military, like 1% of people have played a professional sport.
Yes.
So, like, most people haven't gotten to that level. So they don't understand fitness on the scale of repetitiveness. Like, they don't
Mhm.
understand, like, I have to do this all the time
Mhm.
to look like that person. And because, like, most of the people that you find online, like, we see these fitness influencers, whatever shape that they're in, you don't realize how long they've been doing it. Like, I'll see a lot of females do this. Like, a lot of females will show like their butt progress. They'll be
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
2020, this is what I looked like. In 2024, this is how big my butt is growing, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of females will do that, but like a lot of males don't show, like, 2017, I was this scrawny kid. Now 2024, I look like this. Like, they pretty much show, like, I've looked like this my whole life. Like,
Mhm.
came out the womb just
Right.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Big
it's
burly dude.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that journey that a lot of people don't understand of just as you said, eat the same thing over and over again. And I seen this meme one time. It was like this big bodybuilder, and he was eating his meal, and he was like, "Oh yay, chicken and rice,"
That's exactly it.
because
That's exactly it.
you just got to keep doing it.
It is. Excuse me. I it was not unusual to get the question when I was signing people up at the fitness studio. I'd meet with everybody first and, hey, here's our programs and here's what you can do and here's how we can help you, so on and so forth. And it wasn't unusual to get the question, like, how long is it going to take? Right? How long is it going to take for that to happen? And so there's like this balance of helping them understand that, like, oh, it'll take this long for you to see results, but then here's what it's going to take, right? Like, it'll take you, take you 3 months or 6 months to see results, but until you're 12 months into it, you won't actually sustain results. And there's two parts to that. One part is mental, the other part is physical. Physically, your body has to understand, and this isn't from like your body has a mind kind of thing, but it's like it knows, not knows, once you get it to a point of physicality, then it has a higher likelihood of staying in that physicality. Meaning, once you get 12 months down the road, then you've actually built some sort of foundation that you can start to then build your body on. And and then it becomes easier to maintain, if you will. Not easy in a sense that like you can just take it easy and you don't have to eat well. But like for me, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been in the gym for 25 years. So technically, I could weight train twice a week and probably maintain the same sort of physique. But I've been in the gym for 25 years. For 25 years. So as long as I kept my nutrition on point, then I could pretty much kind of look the same and everything would be okay if I trained about twice a week. However, if you're just getting started, you have to build the foundation and tell your body and show your body that this is the way you're going to look and this is the way you're going to be structured and this is the way you're going to be so that it becomes a sustainable thing. And that takes 12 months just to get to the point where it's like you can start to actually do something with your body. Like, sure, maybe you've probably lost some weight and your body looks a little different, but that 12-month point seems to be a good point where it's like, now I'm actually sustaining and building a structure. I'm actually building something different now. The other part is the mind. The mind at that point finally starts to figure out like, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is who I am, and this is what we do. And it's important to solidify the this is who I am, and this is what we do. Because if you don't, that's where it just becomes unsustainable. It just becomes something you're trying instead of something you're doing.
Yeah, I was doing a podcast with somebody one time, and it like I had the realization that if you want to lose, actually, I'll give another joke analogy. It was I heard somebody say if you owe somebody like $10,000, then that's your problem. But if you owe somebody like $10 million, then that's their problem. And so, so it's
Hmm.
kind of like with with weight loss. Like if you want to lose, let's just say like 20 pounds, then that's something that you're going to do. Like that's just a change you're going to make. But if you want to lose like 100 pounds, then you're about to change who you are. Like
Mm,
that's not even going to be the same person.
mm,
So that's like what you were just talking about, what you do and who you are. Like those are two completely different things when it comes to like what is, we're talking about what is your goal. And if you're just going to lose like 20 pounds, you can do that. That's your summer body thing. You
right.
start January 1st and by June, you've got your 20 pounds or whatever. But like if you're trying to lose 100 and keep that off, you're going to have to become a different person. You're not going out to eat, 5 times a week. You're not um hanging around the house all day watching TV. Like you're going to become a completely different person. Your habits have completely changed.
Well, and completely different person, going back to making this a sustainable thing, completely different person is what you have to become in order to make it a new thing anyway. Now, like you said, with the example that you're talking about, you're totally right. You could lose 20 pounds. I don't want to say it without batting an eye, but most people just make it feel more difficult than what it actually is. 20 pounds, you could do pretty simply. Like you could do it. 100 pounds, 100 pounds is 100 pounds. Like you definitely have to become a different person. You don't have a choice. And yet at the same time, even the 20-pound person, there is a becoming a different person if it's going to be the thing that you're going to do. If you understand what we've already talked about, that this is a lifelong journey, that this is something that you do forever, then becoming a different person is just what's going to happen anyway. And that's not like losing 100 pounds. You have to become a mentally and physically you're going to be a different person as well. But what I'm talking about is mentally. Like you have to be constantly progressing to the next version of yourself. And I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that their current version of themselves is what's sabotaging the next version of themselves.
Mm,
Who they are today is what's keeping them from getting to the person that they're trying to be. Because that want to lose 20 pounds, it's like wanting to lose 20 pounds is like you're already trying to be a different person in a way, but the person that you are today is comfortable with who you are today.
mm.
They don't like whoever you're trying to be. They don't like that person down the road. They're comfortable with who you are. They're comfortable with the habits that you have. They're comfortable with the environment that you're in. And when you start to do these different things, you're changing all of that. You're doing a bunch of different things. You're going into different environments. Your body's literally changing. So you start to sabotage yourself in these small ways, which seem rational to people. People are like, I don't know, so my schedule changed and I had to quit working out. Well, not, then figure it out and do a different time. Like figure it out and do something different.
Yeah.
But if you just understand that like your comfort is what's keeping you from becoming the next version of yourself, then you can start to like build awareness around that. So it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why, if you lose 10, 20 pounds, whatever, somebody's like, "Oh man, you look great." But if you lose 100 or more pounds, a lot of weight, people are like, "I didn't recognize you."
Mm,
Different person.
hmm
Like, that's right. You don't recognize me because
hmm
I have changed.
Definitely.
And also just, as I said, like people's habits, like they're not doing those same things that they used to do. And it's I always think that if you if you're constantly changing, then that's a great thing. A lot of people, this is just a life analogy. It doesn't even have to be about fitness, but like a lot of people were like, man, you've changed. It's like, good. Like, good.
There, Ray Dalio said once that if you can't look back at yourself a year ago and think how stupid you were, then you haven't changed enough, right?
That's good.
Think about that. If you can't look back a year ago and think how dumb you were and the dumb decisions that you made, then you haven't changed enough.
Mm,
And people look at that and they're like, "Wow, isn't that hard on your self-esteem or your self-confidence?" Like, no, I'm this person today. I am this person right now. I'm not that person anymore. Here's another example. This is perfect timing, actually. So I interviewed a girl, Noah Sharp is her name. She's on Instagram. She's got a good following. Super strong girl, and she went through a lot as a youth, and she went through this period where she was lazy and didn't do a whole lot, like in her early 20s, late teens, and she was working at a restaurant and was kind of getting sloppy with herself, and she's like, now she's this successful entrepreneur and super in shape. And I'm like, what do you think? Do you look back at the person and feel like any different about that person? She's like, no, I totally appreciate that person. That person decided to take the next step and move forward. She's like, now I'd eat that motherfucker's lunch every day of the week, but 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 I appreciate that person for who they were, but I'll never go back to that person. I
mm,
will never go back to that person because I have to become the next version of myself. So it's just a progression of life. You have to open your mind to the idea of moving yourself into a new area of life, getting out of the comfort that you're in. And so many people find themselves in this comfortable. We we are we sit at the altar of comfort is the way that I like to look at it.
mm.
And until you recognize that your mind is in a comfortable spot whenever you're sitting there scrolling, and your body's in a comfortable spot when you're literally slouched on the couch, sitting there going like this through Netflix. And like that's your comfort. And that's what's keeping you from moving, from doing something different with your body and with your life. That's what's keeping you from doing it. That's it. I, it's hard, but it's as simple as like, it's just because you're comfortable in literally this frame. And if you just start to change some small things, who knows what will actually happen? But like, that's just where we are, is in a place where we just get so comfortable with how we live that when we try to do something different, our identities pull us back to this comfortable spot.
Now, whatever argument me and Jerry are about to get into, I will say he started it. But so he said something about my Alabama sweatshirt, and he's an LSU fan. So I do want I could talk about sports all day, but I wanted to get this in before we end, since you brought it up.
Fair, fair.
um, what do you think about the state of let's I'm assuming you're a big football fan.
Hmm.
What do you think of the state of athletics, college athletics? Did you say you played college sports?
I did. I played college football.
You play
Yep.
college football. So
Yep.
did you play at LSU?
I did not, sadly enough. I played at a D3 school. Yeah,
Okay.
D3 school up here in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay.
Yep.
So what do you think of the current state of college sports, especially NIL is the big elephant in the room. What do you think about how that's going? How everybody's handling it, and I guess just the way by everybody I mean the athletes as well.
Mm.
How everything is taking course.
You know, I'll fully admit that when I kind of started getting less excited about college sports when it kind of just became this, I don't know, do what you want kind of environment.
Mm,
And I don't want to say do what you want because, obviously there's some rules to be able to jumping around and transferring and all of that. But it's so loose at this point, and the loyalty that you have to a school is so minimal at this point. It's hard as a fan to really be as excited about it. It's almost like when so I'm technically in Kentucky, but it's on the border of Cincinnati. So we're in UK land, right? And so when John Calipari came to UK back, it's been 15 years or so at this point, maybe 12 years. I can't really remember. He came from Memphis, I think is where he came from. And his whole shtick was recruit them and then let them go, right? They're going to come here, they're going to play 1 year, and then they're going to be gone. And that idea to me, while I understand like the concept of get the best players in, and then the goal is to just win the games and then win the championships while they're there, and then they can go on and do their thing. That concept to me just basically, in my opinion, builds a character trait in the kids that is you don't have to be loyal to a thing. You can just kind of come to a thing, and if you don't like it, then you can just go do something different. You can just move, you can just transfer. So, like in college football now, if you don't like where you are, you can just go somewhere else. And as far as I know, as far as I remember, like you don't have to wait to play anymore. You can just kind of transfer somewhere else, and you can just play. So I don't think that they're doing the players and the athletes any justice with the system.
yeah, I completely agree. I think NIL has become like um cryptocurrency. It's like, yeah, we're
Yeah,
all kind of participating,
yeah.
but nobody really knows like how to
What?
govern
Yeah,
it for sure.
yeah. So I don't. What are your thoughts?
So, and I'm kind of on board with how Nick Saban was treating it. He was like, "Yeah, this is great, but somebody has to take a reins on it, or else the rich are going to get richer." That was
Mm-hmm,
his famous quote: "The rich are going to
mm-hmm,
get richer, and the poor are going to get poorer." And
mm-hmm,
that's exactly what we have seen with Ohio State this offseason.
mm-hmm.
They accumulated Ole Miss's running back. They got Alabama's center and Alabama's star freshman safety in Caleb Downs. And then they got the number one player in the country with Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver. So Ohio State has like this NFL type team.
Yeah.
And if Ryan Day doesn't win a championship with this team, I don't know what's up for him next.
Mm-hmm,
I would assume he's going to get fired, but I don't think they have a star quarterback. A lot of people think Will Howard because he came from I think it was Kansas State.
mm-hmm,
I think he's going to like be the star quarterback for the
mm-hmm,
team. And then they had another quarterback on their team that's supposed to be pretty good, but I don't think they have a star
mm-hmm,
quarterback. But they have a phenomenal roster
mm-hmm.
from top to bottom that
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
quite
It's an
literally
interesting
paid
system.
for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting system. My question always goes back to how are you affecting the consumer, or how are you affecting the customer? And the customer in this instance is the athlete, right? And I just don't think that they're doing the athletes any justice in building a character and building uh, characteristics that are going to support them long term.
Yeah, and as you said, and I still and I get it with basketball, right? Like you don't need to be a grown man to play in the NBA. Like you can be if your body is like 6'3", 6'4", at least like probably like 180 or so, then you can play in the NBA and you can be 18 years old. NFL is a different story. I would say probably like Leonard Fournette, maybe Derrick Henry,
Mm,
maybe could have came out of high school
mm-hmm.
and played
It's a
because
big
they
maybe.
yeah,
Hmm.
they had the body for it. And
Hmm.
maybe some offensive linemen, but and like interior linemen, like those guys are just big dudes, but still like it's rough to be able to go straight from high school to a professional athlete. So I think that even the one and done type thing is kind of weird because, as you said, it's not teaching them adversity. Like, yeah, during the season, they're going through adversity. They're going to win and
Hmm.
lose some games, have to fight through stuff. But, what happens if, your team is losing? Then you're like, all right, I'm done. This was fun, but now I'm going to
Yeah.
go play
On
pro.
to the next thing. Yep.
it life I think life lessons could be taught more to college kids, and you could say, well, they're going to go pro and they can make millions of dollars, but it's like, dude, what if they snap their ankle or like tear their ACL and they can't play anymore? Like that
Mm,
college degree might come in handy now.
hmm.
So I
Yeah.
do think that I'm not saying you should force people to get a degree, but at least make it easier for them to do that by giving them yeah, it's hard. I don't even know what I was about to say because it's just hard to allow somebody to go through school for 1 year and show and have nothing to show for it. Like, yeah, they can always go back because they're
Mm,
obviously going to have the money to do it.
mm.
Maybe if they don't 30 for 30 going broke. Have you seen
Right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
people
No doubt.
people blow their money
Yeah.
and without financial help, they don't get these financial advisors um all the time. So yeah, it's a slippery slope that I think the NCAA, a lot of people are talking about the Big Ten and SEC might help everybody break away from the NCAA and start their own league and
Mm,
stuff like that. And because the NCAA sucks, like we all know that. We all
mm,
know the NCAA has done a horrible job at keeping up with the athletes and finances and stuff like that.
mm.
But I don't know. I think it'll all work itself out because I think the right individuals will finally get involved and they'll be like, oh, yeah, these kids are making a lot of money and this is borderline amateur sports.
Yep. You got it.
Well, it's about time to wrap up. If you could, uh, thank you. Number one, thank you for all the advice and knowledge, wisdom that you shared, because I do think it's important for people to one know these in depth kind of conversations instead of just seeing stuff online where people are just like, oatmeal is bad for you and all this and do
No
this
doubt.
workout to increase your strength by 10 times.
Mm.
It's important for people to hear these kind of conversations because there's so much stuff out there, so much fluff out there. But yeah, if you could just give people ways they can find you online or contact you and whatever.
No doubt. Two easiest ways. I also have a podcast, which I'd love to have you on as well, Jackson. That'd be great. Goodwolfproject.us is the website for that. Goodwolfproject.us is the website for that, or the address for that. You can go there, find all the episodes, find the links to episodes, find the links to all my social media there. There's also a sign up form for my email where I send out a weekly email with quotes and questions and just different ideas to think about. So Instagram's the other thing at Jerry Scarlato. Very simple. DM me anytime, any questions. Happy to answer.
Awesome. Again, thank you for coming on, and I hope that everybody really was able to grasp, what you stand for and how you can help them to gain more knowledge and wisdom within this world because there's, as I said, there's just so much stuff out there and it's kind of hard to decipher, what good info is. And I always say somebody who's really knowledgeable will point to somebody else. And you were talking about Andy Galpin and Huberman and all those people, those same people I follow. So I definitely think you know what you're talking about, and it's great and refreshing for you to be able to point toward other knowledgeable people. So again, thank you for everything you shared.
You got it, brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your audience.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.